This is Off Track. Hello and welcome to Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. Yes, Tuesday episode with both of us, and we do have a guest today. But yeah, it's an interesting day, guys.
Is that unusual to have guests on your podcast?
No, well, I mean, we try to have one on the Tuesday episode. We're going to have multiple today, but what's unusual about it is there's like some interesting news.
We actually have to be professional. That's the new thing for us. Yeah.
I think people are well aware what they're getting when they sign up for this show, and that professionalism is not it. But there is some cool news to discuss. Of course, if you haven't already figured it out, our guest is the CEO of TWG Motorsports, Dan Towriss, as his name appears on his little box here on Riverside. And Dan, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. First time on the show, so thanks for the invite.
Of course. Why don't we kick it off with actually a little bit of a recap? Because we did just finish Nashville. The IndyCar season for 2025 is over and done with. So why don't you give us a little bit of a recap for you and an assessment of how the IndyCar season was for Andretti?
Yeah, so I think it was a challenging season for Andretti. We certainly had our high spots, but I think we also had some of our low spots. In the season. Certainly the drivers were fantastic. From that standpoint, in terms of, they drove great. We had a lot of speed, at the track. But we, made some mistakes along the way. We had some foibles in pit lane that, cost us some races. We've had some, interesting calls in, pit lane and other places that, let's just say are arguable. But but all in all, just really proud of the progress that the team, has made this year. Love this group of guys, or guys and gals that we have, at Andretti. And, so excited with, to finish the season and start building on 2026.
So I want to ask a little bit of a question. We have a lot to cover in 20 minutes, but a personal question for you in terms of, you came into the sport as kind of a sponsor, not that long ago, and your role has grown into what it is. And we're going to talk a lot about what that is in a few moments, but walk us through that journey in as brief of a time period as you can, and just like how much your understanding and knowledge of the sport has changed, and maybe things that are a lot harder to accomplish maybe than you thought when you first joined.
Yeah, so came in as a sponsor for sure. Really fell in love with IndyCar. I love, open wheel racing, but in particular, IndyCar racing, just how close it is. And I think initially it was this, this idea that all these people, you have 100+ people on a team that are searching for a thousandth of a second, and that's going to matter, significantly on track. And so just even from a business standpoint, that was super interesting to me. And kind of went from sponsor of the 26 car to sponsor for the Indy 500, kind of grew into that piece. So just, a bigger and bigger role. And then an opportunity came to, become partners with Michael and get into the ownership space. And really then you start to take a closer look, and it's not just showing up, on race weekends and enjoying the sport, of it. There's a lot more to learn, behind, what each person is doing and, what makes a team successful. But, kind of the common threads that I see, in motorsports versus other businesses, at the end of the day, you're still building high performing, high functioning teams. So how do you do that? It's people, you want talented people, you're building culture. From that standpoint, they need to have the resources. You want to have the right strategy, for the team. And then you want tactical execution on that basis. And so like anything else, you're looking back and saying, are we headed in the right direction as a team? Do we have the right strategy? And then are we executing tactically against that strategy, from that standpoint? And so I feel like I've learned a lot in a short period of time, but have, an enormous amount to learn as well. But really thankful for the people that, have a great team around me that have helped me along the way.
Part of the story I've always heard is you had talked at your church and somebody had heard about that and they asked the pastor if they could get in contact with you. Like, that's an awesome story, and it all obviously worked out pretty well. But like, was part of you like a little upset that the pastor was just giving out your contact info? for that kind of thing?
We didn't, to be clear, they've never let me talk at church, Tim.
Okay. They talked about you at church? I don't know.
No, yeah. Aaron Brockett at Traders Point had, he was in a conversation with Zach Veach, which is a story which is 100% true. And Aaron gave Zach my name. And it wasn't so much that, hey, call him and ask him for money, from that standpoint. It was really advice. And to Zach's credit, that's the way the conversation went. He was calling for advice. I was the one that said, hey, Zach, nice to meet you. I don't sponsor race cars. I don't sponsor race car drivers. Go, say what you have to say. But along the way, I liked his story, and I wanted to help out. I wanted to be a part of, his journey, into motorsports. And, obviously it's opened a lot of doors from that standpoint and brought some interesting opportunities along the way. And so I'm pretty glad it happened.
Dan, you've learned a lot in your time in motorsports now. And as you said, it's all about people and building a right team. For those that don't know, you're also the CEO of Cadillac F1, and you are quite literally building a team from the ground up. So those lessons that you've learned on the IndyCar side, I imagine coming into effect there. But as we look into 2026, we understand that there is some changes happening at Andretti for 2026, and would like to give you the opportunity to kind of let the people know what one of the more significant ones that's going to be happening.
Yeah. So we'll start with the first one. So if we're looking at the TWG Motorsports checkerboard, the board up on the wall, what are some of the pieces that we're moving around? And so Cadillac Formula One will be announcing Colton Herta as a test and development driver, for the team, from that standpoint. So Colton's going to be leaving Andretti, to pursue his dream in Formula One. It was something that we were looking at a few years ago when Michael and I were looking to acquire Sauber. That deal didn't happen. Things kind of fell through at the last minute, but it really kind of started Colton on this journey where he, really started to show a lot of promise in Formula One. He went over to Switzerland, got on the simulator, and within an hour was faster than the two Formula One drivers with the team at that time. That led to some other things to show some real excitement, along the way. And so he's built up an actual body of work that not everybody knows about, in Formula One in terms of some of the tests that he's done, from that standpoint, even to drawing interest from Red Bull, later on from there. So again, we've been fortunate to keep, Colton at Andretti, in the IndyCar team. And so now he's going to pursue that dream in Formula One. And so to do that, he's going to take a pretty big risk. He's leaving IndyCar. He's not going directly to Formula One. This is a test and development driver role. And so he's going to be going into F2. He's got to learn tracks. He's got to learn tires. Tires are a big part of that. Very different from IndyCar from that standpoint. And so I just couldn't be more proud of Colton to be willing to take that risk to pursue his dream.
When you broach this subject with him, it is you're stepping away from the known, right? Something that you've really, you set your goal at achieving, and you did it at a young age. You got there at a young age. You won at a young age. He's been part of a top team for a long time. He's a regular contender. To step away from that, to do, a preparatory year potentially before even having the opportunity to maybe step up into F1, that's a big ask. So when you approached him with this option, what was that discussion like?
Yeah, so it was just like, hey, Colt, we've talked about Formula One for a long time now. And, as I think about it, it took a lot to get here. So, Graham Loden, the team principal, Graham, paid a big price to get into Formula One. I, paid a price to get into Formula One. And if you want to, this is the price you have to pay to get into Formula One through work and development. Of course, we're not talking money. Because again, I think going back, I think most people know that our journey to Formula One was a rocky one. It was 3 years of trying to break through and get an entry for an American team. And Graham was central to that process. We were kind of, partners through this, massive uphill journey to try to secure an entry, and we got it. And so it's just like, nothing about Formula One is easy, from that standpoint. And, hey, bud, it's not going to be easy for you too. But if you want to pursue that dream, this is what the path looks like. This is what you're going to need to do. And it's up to you to decide, if you're willing to do that.
I'd be very interested for you to explain to our listeners. James and I have a firsthand experience working with Colton, and he's been a big topic of this show for many years, just based on his accomplishments on track. What do you see in him? Like, what is the thing? Because James and I last week we talked at length, about how we both viewed your decision for your driver lineup to be one that was the exact same thing we would do if we were in your shoes. It wasn't we're an American team, so we have to have this American play. No, we're a brand new team, and we have to have the best, most experienced drivers that are available. And you got that in Sergio and Valtteri. But just explain to our listeners why Colton could be the path forward and the future of Cadillac F1, and also just so happens to be an American kid as well.
Yeah, so I think Colton, through the tests, the various tests that we've talked about, I think has shown high potential in a Formula One type car. I think a lot of times when people think about, IndyCar and Formula One or NASCAR, just, are looking at different series, they kind of think that, being successful in one means you're going to be successful in a different one. And I just don't think that that's actually the case. They're very different. Like, it's very challenging to go from IndyCar to NASCAR or vice versa. It's almost, you guys tell me, but it's almost like unlearning all of your instincts and doing, the opposite, in a lot of ways, from that standpoint. And so I think Colton's shown, very high potential in a Formula One type car. I think he's very good at like high commitment corners. He's been, he's done very well on, street and road type courses. Generally in IndyCar, that's been a specialty of his, of just seeing a different way around the track, from other people. I think Colton also adapts to new information, very, very quickly. And his driving style has been adapted to, doing a lot of complex things in the car. And I think all of those are going to be skills, that are needed in Formula One. And I think, he's historically done very well with tires, but he's going to have a new challenge in that as well.
No, I agree with all that. And I also think his approach, right? Like him seemingly being unfazed by anything that gets thrown at him, good, bad, indifferent. He's just there. He loves driving race cars. He's going to always give 105%, no matter the session, no matter the lap. So those are the things that in that environment, which whether it's Cadillac F1 or not, it's a hostile environment over there. European motorsports is a little bit different. You obviously got to experience that firsthand, as you touched on briefly, for those 3 years. So I think his just kind of even keeled approach will pay huge dividends. My last question that I have for you before James has the other big one is, was there ever a moment, right, in those 3 years where you were like, this isn't worth it? Like, this is too much heartache. This is too much. This is too much drama for an American F1 team to actually come to fruition.
I feel like my wife, Cassidy, put you up to that question. There were absolutely days where I was just like, I'm done. I don't need this headache. And, she's a huge fan of motorsport and has always been there to support and push, and she's like, you're not giving up, on this, keep pushing. You've got it. And it was super helpful. It was essential, to have someone like that in your corner that understood, what was happening, and to push on that basis. Cause there were times, I was actually talking with Sarah Eisen from CNBC, and, she was doing this at the time, was doing this documentary with F1 from like a business standpoint, and talking to team principals and Greg Maffei at the time, who was running Liberty Media. And it was just like, oh, there's no 11th team. There's no new entry. It's not happening. Like, we're happy to go on the record. It's not happening. And Graham and I are sitting there like, at this point, we're building cars. We're in a wind tunnel where, the project's 150 million deep, into that. And you're basically hearing like, not this, well, if you do this, if you do that, you might get there someday. It was just like, no, it was a hard
pass.
no.
Yeah.
And, and so to look at that, yeah, like it's kind of, and that's kind of what I meant by like, we paid a price. So you had the stress of thinking through that, but it really pushes you. And a lot of times when you're in this stressful situation, it's that last little bit where you keep digging, you keep pushing, where you find the solution, you find the next thing, that keeps the project going. And I guess that's why they say pressure makes diamonds, right? Because, if it were easy, like you don't get that, you don't extract that last bit out. And it takes, it takes in some ways almost a, that high pressure desperation or whatever, where you're like, I just got to go back through this one more time. I just got to dig through this one more time. There's a solution in here somewhere. I just haven't found it yet. And it was like that type of mindset, to keep pushing through to get that entry.
Amazing. Well, congrats.
Obviously, we're all really rooting for Colton now and hope this goes well. He's a friend of all of us. I guess you missed the countless emails I sent you lobbying for myself for that seat, but silver lining, there's a seat now available for me. So
I got all your emails.
I can just take Colton's seat in IndyCar and we're still good.
But before you do your hard pitch on that one, Tim, I got one last thing I want to touch on with the Colton situation. So I understand that, going over there, it's about learning the racetracks. It's about learning the tires and kind of how they operate is very different from what we experience on the IndyCar side. And there's a lot for that. But I also understand that a big part of it is integration with the team, right? I mean, a Formula One team is a very complex machine. It's a very different kind of weekend rhythm and cadence. And a big part of that is for Colton to be pretty integrated into the team and really learn the world of Formula One while he's, learning on the driving side in F2. So 2-part question: is the expectation that he will be at every event? And the second part is it as clear cut as if he excels next year in a junior category that he has a seat?
Yeah. So like I said, I think, Colton's taking a big risk. We've got 2 experienced drivers, in the car. I'm confident Colton will get his shot, but he's got to earn it, right? He's taking that risk. This isn't, Colton signing, which I think people should really take note of and admire Colton for that bold move. Like this, it's not like, he's not entitled to the seat. He's not guaranteed, the seat from that standpoint. He's going over to prove that he belongs in Formula One. I think we could all say that people that don't belong in Formula One, that it separates it out pretty quickly, right? If it's not meant to be. And so it's not, it's not the right move for anyone, from that standpoint. But I think that's part of what you have to look at in this situation and why, that's Colton's doing a big thing here. I mean, he's, it's like, no risk, no reward, I guess, from that standpoint. But I think what I applaud most about him is his willingness to be uncomfortable. When you come to a fork in the road, the most comfortable thing he could have done was say, I'm well paid, I'm going to stay in IndyCar and go try to achieve this next thing. But he chose the unconventional path. He chose something that's a very uncomfortable situation. There's a lot of new things, that are going to come at him. And, but I think it's when you do put yourself in that situation, he's going to grow, tremendously, and he's got a big opportunity in front of him as well.
No, it's great. I think the fact that there are no guarantees makes it that much more impressive what he's decided to do, and it's great that he gave him the opportunity. That said, I think there's a glaring and obvious follow-up question. If Colton is fully focused on European racing in 2026, there's an opening behind the wheel of the 26. Tim, uncross your fingers. It is not you, but anything you want to share about your plans on the IndyCar side?
Yeah, happily to. So Will Power has agreed to take the 26 seat for 2026. And so he will pilot the blank, 26 Honda. But so starting at the first of the year, we'll be a part of the team and we'll be rocking.
The 26 car has become one of those legacy cars, right? I think in the past 5 years, the 9 is Dixon, that, well, I guess 10 now is Palou. The 12 has obviously been Will. The 26 has been Colton. So those cars are always incredibly difficult to find replacement drivers for because there's this expectation, right? That car is going to be at the front, is going to be in contention week in and week out. So what an amazing opportunity for both of you, right? To be able to find someone of Will's caliber. I mean, the fastest IndyCar driver in history, right? 2 championships, 500, so much legacy going into that car. And also for Will, going to a team that in some regards is an upgrade. Like, you don't often leave Team Penske, right, and think that you're going to next year have a more competitive car or a better chance to win races. So I just want to congratulate you both on that. But did you, when this came up with Colton, did you know Will was going to be available? And did that make this whole kind of jigsaw puzzle piece moving easier?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I absolutely did think about, like, at different points in time, I was thinking about, do I offer Colton this path? Like, does he get, does it make sense, for him to pursue that? But then it's like, well, hey, wait a second. If Colton leaves, Andretti, like, who am I going to put in the car? And like, because you're right, it's very difficult. Those are big shoes to fill, on the Andretti side. And so I was just like, nah, I'm not doing it. Like, just, it's too big of a move. And it was actually at Road America this year where, Roger had given Will permission, just to talk to other teams and kind of see what's out there. And Will came up to me and he was just like, I want to drive for you. And I'm like, well, I have 3 drivers under contract, but I have something in my head. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And so, I mean, it was really right at that time that I'd been thinking about taking that next step with Colton, of like saying, this is what the Formula One path looks like. And we're kind of at this place where it's either now or never, from that standpoint. And, so it was, somewhat serendipitous that it's all kind of happened at the same time, because you're absolutely right. There was a big consideration about who was going to go in that car, and I couldn't be more excited that it's going to be Will Power.
Obviously, we all know Will's track record. We know the wins, the poles, all that stuff. But as you've always said, and we've talked about it here, racing's about people, building a team's about people. So I'm sure there's a lineup of drivers that would have happily driven the 26 car. I know it's not, it's not always, again, big shoes to fill with Colton Herta stepping out, but what was it about Will? Why was Will an attractive option for you above and beyond just what his resume says? Yeah.
So like, I knew Will just, generally, would see him around or whatever. We didn't talk a lot. And so as I started to get to know him, I don't think I appreciated just how intense his work ethic is, and, how much of a technician he is and how detailed he is. He's like borderline mechanic, borderline engineer, race car driver.
Borderline insane.
Borderline musician, drummer, I guess.
Yeah.
As well, right? So I don't know. Maybe it was better than that. But
no, that was the connection. That's you're like, oh, a drummer's leaving this car. We need a drummer to replace him. It's the only way it's going to work.
It's the only way it's going to work. That was my first question. I go, well, what instrument do you play?
Sure.
No, but man, I was just like, this guy's work ethic. I'm like, wow. Like I really do think he's going to take it to a new level, with the teammates. I think he feels like he's got so much to prove yet still in IndyCar, despite the record, that he has. And so I was just like, I love the energy around this guy, like who he is and, how he approaches racing. I had no idea that it was that detailed, that intense. And, so as I got to know him a little bit more as a race car driver, I was just like, I want this guy on my team.
I love that. Because this is somewhat breaking news, and so we're like a quasi like media outlet in this one particular example in the 8-year history of the show. I'm going to ask a question that like I normally wouldn't have asked, but I know you're going to get asked. So let's just get it out. So that way, hopefully less people ask you in the future. Sure. Is this a single year deal, a multi-year deal? What are you willing and able to share in terms of, kind of the specifics on that side of things?
Yeah. So Will's a multi-year deal, from that standpoint. And so, we're excited to have him on and it's, as we continue to build out our driver lineup, we're super excited about that.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and sharing all of this. It's been incredible for all of us. But specifically James and I, I have a soft spot for Formula One with my history. Shut up, Tim. James obviously has gotten very involved in that world recently. So the fact that there is people that we know now, people that we're ultimately all very close with in different regards, going out and participating in the biggest sport in the world is pretty amazing. So we wish you all the best. Thank you for the time, and can't wait to watch and cheer you on from afar.
Awesome.
Not
Thanks,
in IndyCar,
guys.
though, because
Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks very much, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Well, we spoke with the boss man, and joining us now is one of the key players in the big news from today, Mr. Colton Herta. Buddy, welcome to the show.
I'm back for more.
You're back.
you're back.
Back for more. So, yeah, we just spoke to your boss, who informed us that you will be racing, I think it's John Deere tractors in the U.S. Tractor Racing Association's inaugural season next year, which is
Honestly,
pretty exciting
it
stuff.
wouldn't surprise me if they got more super license points than IndyCar.
Going after those points. That's what we got to do. We got to get into the John Deeres.
There you go. Well, look, buddy, we got the official word that you are being announced as the Cadillac F1 reserve driver for 2026, which is very exciting. And that means that you're likely to pursue some racing endeavors over in Europe next year as you kind of reacclimate, I should say, to racing over in Europe. You obviously have done that in the past, but let's just start off by, I mean, how do you feel about the news that everybody learned today? You've known for some time, but the rest of the world just found out.
I'm happy. I'm happy that we can finally share it with everyone. It's been a discussion for quite some time now behind the scenes, and to finally get it out there and let everybody hear about it feels great. For me, all I can do is really show gratitude to Dan and TWG and Cadillac F1 for giving me this opportunity to be a test driver for Formula One team and an American Formula One team. So it's an exciting time, and for me, I'm just I'm chomping at the bit. I think it's a really cool step for me, a cool opportunity, and one that I'm ready to get to work on.
So this is obviously all of those things. It's an amazing opportunity. It's there are a lot of people putting a lot of faith and belief in what you're capable of, rightly so, in my opinion. But walk us through the decision-making process for you. Dan touched on it a little bit when we spoke with him about how, when he presented you with these options, he was really impressed that you ultimately chose the harder route. You chose the road that had more risks associated with it. Yes, a great reward, but there was a lot. There is potentially a lot that could happen, right? And what was ultimately the thing that made you be like, all right, this is my opportunity, and I need to go do this? Yeah,
I think for me, it's been a dream of mine to try to make it into Formula One, and I know everyone's seen how close I've come before, and I think this is my best shot at getting to Formula One. I think it goes without saying, like you said, the risk factor of I'm leaving a great situation here in IndyCar, a place that was my home for 6 seasons, and during those 6 seasons really has become kind of built around what I want. In the team with the engineering group and the mechanics and everything that has happened has kind of conformed around me because I've been there the longest. So the easy thing would be to stay in IndyCar. That would be simple for me. I live a very similar life that I've been doing. But for me, it's a dream of mine. I want to fight for my dream, and that is to try to make it to Formula One. That I think this isn't a forever goodbye to IndyCar by any means. I see myself in coming back to IndyCar at some stage in my career, just because I love it. But for me, I really wanted to try to make it to Formula One, and this is my opportunity.
You kind of touched on how it's been an up and down thing. You've had some close calls of, you've tested, you were in the simulator, Dan actually gave a little bit of the background there as well. Maybe some stuff that people had known previously. I know there's been so many jokes, let's call it memes, everything about super license points and all that stuff. But after the Sauber thing didn't happen, after the AlphaTauri thing didn't happen. You had a great test with McLaren, but that wasn't going anywhere. Andretti was struggling to get a team in F1, before it became Cadillac F1. You'd gotten close and tasted it. Had you kind of given up hope at one point and sort of, been resigned to the fact that, man, we were close, but look, there's only 20 seats. Not everybody gets that chance.
Yeah. And I don't think it was ever really like sour grapes of Formula One and our inability to make that push and finally get a race seat. For me, I was content. And, after the AlphaTauri thing fell through, I was thinking, well, that's probably it for me in Formula One. And, that was my last shot. The age was a factor. And, it seemed to me that it was just going to be a career in IndyCar, which is not a bad thing, I don't think, So I was happy with that. I was content with that. But then I got this one last lifeline from Dan and Cadillac F1 and everybody over there at TWG. And for me, it was an incredibly tough decision to make, because I know what I'm leaving behind. I'm leaving behind a great group of guys, an incredibly competitive championship where, you can, if it's your day, you can win, and we've seen that's not always the case in Formula One. You need the car to compete, but, it's a risk and it's a dream of mine. So I thought, this is my last shot at it. I want to do it. I want to take that chance. And so for me, it's really just about fighting for my dream. And that's kind of what the opportunity was given to me from.
This has been news that you've known about for a bit. What is the next steps? I'm not asking the details of what 2026 is involving, but what are the next steps in terms of, are you gonna move to Europe? Are you going to start immediately working with Cadillac F1 on their sim program that's in Concord? What happens in the next week, month, 2 months going into January of 26?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure everything out, right? This is still really fresh and I don't have all the answers for all that. But I think the biggest thing is how do we prepare me best to become a Formula One driver? What does that entail? Yes, sim work, getting over there, living over there, being in the workshop as much as I can to try to learn off of the two good drivers that they have right now. And, and wherever they see me fit, that's what I'm going to try to be doing. If they want me to be learning from their qualifying pace or being on the simulator on race weekends, and I don't know everything that entails, but I'm willing to do whatever they want me to do to make this a success, because that's the most important thing for me, is that it is successful.
I just need to correct myself real quick. I misspoke when I said you're a reserve driver. You are a development and test driver officially. So I apologize for my misstep there. You should have jumped in and corrected me, Colton. You can't let people just disseminate lies and rumors in the media. I admire, look, everything that you're doing, this whole thing is so admirable in so many ways. And, we asked Dan straight up, does Colton's deal say he goes and integrates with the team, races in Europe, whatever it is, whatever involvement you have with Cadillac F1 next year in 2026, and then he has a race seat in 2027? And he said, no, there's no guarantees. You got to earn it. This is performance-based business, whatever. The fact that it's not as clear cut as, you develop for a year and then you get to go race. It's very much you get this next year and then it's up to you to sink or swim. Like, is that part scary? Does the lack of a guarantee make this an extra scary step?
No, not for me, because, I think as racing drivers, as James and Alex, you bet on yourself. You constantly are betting on yourself. And for me, this is just one of those things where I'm betting on myself. And, I believe in myself. I believe that I'm fast enough to do it. That's not saying it's going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of work to understand the differences from the Grand Prix racing to IndyCar racing. But, I think it's something that I'm going to work for. I'm 100% diving into it. And for me, I think it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of learning. There's going to be a lot of things I'm going to have to pick up on quickly, but I believe that I can do it. And, if I didn't think that I could do it, like I said, it's a super big risk, but I would stay in IndyCar. But I believe in myself, and I believe I'm fast enough.
Is there a scenario that because of the way the schedule works next year, that you would still do the 500 in 2026?
I did not know about that.
There is no conflict.
Monaco's not a conflict.
Hang on. I knew about that. You didn't know about that?
I didn't know about that. I think.
Should we get Dan back on here?
I was going to say, I know what his next call is
show.
What his next call is going to be when he gets off this show.
I don't know. I think it depends what I'm doing next year, and how involved I am and what that off time looks like for me. I think we all know about my love for IndyCar and especially the 500. If it makes sense, it's definitely something that I would be open to, but it has to make sense, right? And it can't hold us back from the ultimate goal, which is, trying to reach Formula One with Cadillac F1.
So my follow-up to that is we don't need to go into the super license point details. It's a joke that anyone's in this position in the first place. Was it ever an option for you to continue racing in IndyCar and achieve the necessary super license points via free practice sessions and still integrating in the weekends that didn't conflict? Was that ever something that was suggested? And then if it was, why didn't you go that way?
There was a discussion about it. I think ultimately me and the team thought it would be best to integrate myself in Europe, and with that, the IndyCar schedule is so hectic for, 5 months, and I wouldn't have any time really to be over there and being in the sim or, doing TPC tests and whatnot, FP1s. It would be tougher. So this kind of frees up my schedule a lot more to be able to dive kind of headfirst into it.
Where does it start? When does it start? I know this is all pretty new, and you said there's still some things to kind of outline and define, but for you, like, what is the next step? What's the first kind of official task and official duty that you know of that you're going to have?
I think that's all still being worked out. I think the biggest thing is over these next few weeks is figuring out what the plan is for next year, what the racing plan looks like, what the testing plan looks like, when they'll need me to be over there. But I'm sure I'll probably be integrated here after September. We'll have some time to kind of decompress from the IndyCar season, and then kind of learn what this next year is going to look like in this off season.
Can I ask how long you've known, like when this decision was made? Because I know it wasn't a quick decision. Like, you were approached with this scenario by Dan or whoever, and it wasn't like in that conversation you were like, hell yeah, let's go. It was like, let me think about it. Let me work through all this. So when did you actually make that call?
I want to say probably a few days ago officially. It was a really recent thing that, like, yeah, we're doing this, and it had been talked about for a long time, right? So there was a lot of understanding of, like, this is what it'll look like, and this is what it'll be. This is the plan for what we want to do, leading up to the Formula One stuff. Obviously, there's still the details to figure out, but the decision is relatively new. And for me, why it took so long was because I cared so much about who I was working with in IndyCar. I cared so much about the guys that had been with me since, I got to Andretti, and the ones that are new either this year or the past few years. So for me, it was a lot of, I have to do this. I have to be fully involved, and it's a big kind of risk for me, but I'm also leaving behind a lot of good stuff. Not only team members, but, racing a lot of talented race car drivers.
Were you able at all to have a conversation with Nathan about this? For those that don't know, Nathan O'Rourke has been Colton's engineer since day one. You obviously, that driver-engineer relationship is one of the strongest in the paddock, and you've had that from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Were you able to, like, I don't know, not ask his advice, but just run it by him, or did you have to just make this decision by yourself?
No, I was able to talk to him about it, because
cool.
He was probably the most important part of it, of me, making that decision to stay in IndyCar or leave. he has kind of given up a lot in his life, to be an engineer, and he's a really good one. He does so much for the team, but also he's been, my biggest supporter and the person that I've worked closest with in IndyCar for the past 6 seasons. So, I definitely wanted to talk to him about it. Credit to him. He was only interested in what I wanted to do, right? He said, don't worry about me. If this is what you want to do, you have to do it. This is your career. There will never be hard feelings. And, I think he's saying, like, hopefully when you come back one day, we'll be able to work together again. So I was glad that he had that reaction, and it wasn't, oh, you're just leaving me. He was, really positive about it. And,
you big meanie.
Yeah. Like my best interest, it was his best interest, so he was really supportive of it.
So Dan sort of alluded to the fact that, this had been talked about a lot, but one of the big concerns that he had was, well, if Colton leaves and does this, who do we put in the 26? There wasn't an obvious, follow-up to that. And so it makes sense to me now that this was kind of a more recent decision, because it was only fairly recently that, Will's availability became known. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, big shoes to fill with Colton stepping out, but, Will's on that level, and that's an opportunity here. So I'm sure that made the pitch, in Dan's head, that made it make more sense. But I guess I'm wondering if you were able to, depending on, the timeline of these conversations, were you able to kind of appreciate that these last few races were going to be your last few races in IndyCar, at least for the foreseeable future? And did that sort of, did that add anything to those weekends? Was there any extra emotion? I know you couldn't talk about it, which was probably the hardest part, but
Right.
how did you feel over the last few weeks?
I think Sunday was emotional for me. Just dealing with the fans and with the engineering staff for what could be the last time for a long time. So it was a weird day for sure. It was a weird emotion. There's happiness, there's sadness. I was nervous about the whole thing. And I think our race wasn't great, but my feeling after the race was different than when you finish, 11th and don't have a great day. Like I was kind of at ease.
Content.
There's kind of a moment of bliss, I guess. And yeah, I mean, I love IndyCar so much, and I love the fans and everything involved with the racing and what makes it so difficult, and the unpredictability of it. So, it's definitely something that I'm going to miss.
How much, this has been all consuming for you for 6 years. How much are you still going to pay attention? Like, I bet St. Pete's going to be very weird. Like, are you going to be every practice session, like, dialed in? Yeah.
What's great about, a lot of those races, right? Especially the European ones, is you race, I'll get back to the hotel, and have a shower, and I'll be able to sit down with a beer and watch an IndyCar race, which is such a weird thing. The last time that I was able to have a beer and watch the IndyCar race was, I think, when I crashed out at Indy. I
was going to say, you were like 18 when you got to IndyCar, so hang on. Before you indict yourself here.
No.
I was going to say, the last time I got to do that was Sunday. So
2022 or 2023, I got back, I sat in the bus, and I had a beer and watched like the last 20 laps of the Indy 500. It's an interesting thing. I know it's going to be sad to sit there and watch you guys have fun and racing, but it'll be different for me. And I think the timelines, they work so well for those European races. You get back, shower, ready for bed, IndyCar races on. Is perfect. And I will be watching very, very much. Every session, anytime that I can, I will 100% be watching.
I could just imagine it now. You're going to be the guy that's like annoyingly texting me up in the booth during session, like during races, be like, "What's this guy doing? What happened here? Why did he be?"
100%. Yeah, you will be littered with text messages from me.
Terrific.
Well, I must say, I'll miss you personally, because I felt like I was a part of your beginning, right? And to see you take the step to be an American driver in Formula One for Cadillac F1 of all teams is, I think, if it happens, one of the coolest stories that could be written. So go get it, man. Like that's a hell of an opportunity. And like you said, it's a dream for you. So it's pretty awesome.
I know we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, or I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit by saying this, and Alex has kind of alluded to it. Obviously, the goal is to be an F1 in the not too distant future. So, Alex, as a former American on the grid of a Formula One race, what advice do you have for young Colton here as he sets off on this adventure?
Should be fine.
Good.
Should
right,
be
thank
fine.
you.
I'm definitely going to hit you up for some credentials, though.
Yes, please do.
Yes.
As long
Nice.
as Ben's coming.
Okay, deal.
So let's get to the stuff that people really want to know about. Are you going to start being like a fashion icon and like going into the paddock with like doing your fit checks before you go in? Like, are you, or like, you know, or like cargo shorts and Vans with tube socks? Like, is that going to be the vibe? Like, are you going to change, bro? Are you going to become like that, or are you going to stick to the Colton we know and love?
No, I think I'm definitely team gear on Thursday type of guy.
There you go.
And I think it's gonna be the same person. Don't worry.
You're gonna keep wearing those stupid shoes and
Same shoes. Yeah, probably just
right.
keep them for the next 6 months. Show up in Melbourne with them.
Sweet. All right. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, look, like Alex said, it's an incredible opportunity. We're so happy for you. So impressed with you willing to take this risk and roll the dice and bet on yourself. Like you said, it's awesome. You know, you're going to have an entire IndyCar community cheering for you, whatever's happening next year, and then certainly beyond that. So I hope it's not too long before we see you back at an IndyCar track and back in an IndyCar. But at the same time, we know you got a lot of cool stuff that you want to accomplish over there. So best of luck with everything.
Thanks so much, guys. I can't wait to watch from afar and cheer on Alex next year.
Well, I hope you're faster on the racetrack than you are at getting to interviews, because our next guest is 23 minutes late.
Have you
I'd
been
like to
waiting
welcome
that long?
and
As
he's
he
now
exits
gone.
out.
Evidently not.
It's worse than me. Oh my goodness.
I think I no longer have the worst internet on the show.
Well, thanks for coming on, Will.
Yeah, great chat with Will Power, driver of the number 26 machine for Andretti next year. Neat, cool, tight.
I think he'd be better at technology with all the sim racing he does.
He's also like, he's been sponsored by a tech company for the last like 100 years. A telecoms company. You think he'd be good with internet?
I think he'd have the best internet.
All right.
What's your excuse now?
So yeah, first you're late, then you abandon us. That's cool.
Verizon's internet connection.
Verizon cut the internet to your house.
Yeah.
Done. It's like, out, man. You're out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Weirdest
that
thing
does bring up an interesting question. Do you have to pay for your own cell phone bill now?
I will, yeah. It's been 17 years of no cell phone bills for myself and my wife. 17 years. I don't even know what it costs to have a cell phone now per month. I mean, you could rather tell me what is it about.
Welcome to our...
Oh my God.
Jeez. Yeah, I don't know. The internet's been a trash for a while, so I've got to work on that now that I'm going to...
Good.
You've got all off season to get your internet better, pal. I do have to say, though, that announcing to the world that you have no idea what a cell phone bill costs because you've had free cell phones for 17 years is up there on one of the least relatable comments that's ever been made on this show. And I mean, you've got Alex and I on here, so that's a good one. I'm impressed.
That is pretty nuts. Like, to actually have to wonder, like, is it like $50 a month, or is it...
You guys are on your own with this one.
Yeah.
I need
Sorry. Let's see. Hold on.
This is fantastic.
Boy. New team owner is going to be like, what did we just employ?
I think he might be still watching, so he might be
That's
in the
gonna be
background.
awesome. Yeah, he's probably like, oh yeah, you're yeah, sorry. Well, you know,
Hey,
so, you know,
as long As long as you're better with a steering wheel than you are with a laptop, I don't think we're going to have a problem. I think you're going to be just fine.
That is definitely the case. Just ask my engineer.
Good.
Like I'm not a
yeah. You're not a tech guy.
Oh, I am a bit, but I'm not.
Are you
trying to work out?
No, he's not.
I just figured
about
all those trophies.
Man. I'm not that sort of tech guy.
I figured all those trophies in the background were scrambling signals or something.
That's just a fraction of what I'm going to do here.
The funny thing is, it's true. For those that haven't put it together yet, we've now moved on to Will Power, who joins us on the show. And Will, I got to be honest with you, we had some technical difficulties. We saw that to the point where Alex Rossi had to bail. He had somewhere to be. And so you're stuck with just me. It's now morphed into an episode of just Off Track with Hinch or Rossi. In this case, it's me. Look, dude, we've already spoken to Dan Towriss, who has given us the news officially, and now we're here with you. And I mean, there's so much to cover. There's so much that I think people want to know. There's so much that I want to know. And I think the easiest place to just start is tell us about your excitement level, of joining the Andretti IndyCar team after a 17-year stint at Team Penske and kind of starting this new journey.
Extremely excited. I have a tremendous amount of experience in these cars, and I've been in a team that has won quite a few championships in the time that I've been there. Not just me, but my teammates and so on. So I'm really looking forward to driving the new challenge, let's say. And I signed with Andretti because of, that not only they're already winning races, but a tremendous amount of potential. Just, speaking with Dan and, his motivation level to sort of restructure the team and improve it in many different areas. Really excited to work with Kyle and Marcus, guys that I've had great battles with over the years. And just, man, it's cool to, come in with that much experience and understanding of, how things are done. And I've never stopped digging. I love driving. I'm an absolute student of it, and still feel like I'm in my 20s. That's how I feel. That's my enthusiasm. That's my level of enthusiasm towards this job. So it's cool. I've been excited, man, ever since this started to come about. And, man, I just made the decision and commitment. Penske did offer me something, and I just said, look, I think it's the right time for me to leave. And I don't know. I'm guessing it's Malukas. I don't know, but I think they'll have a good guy in there as well. They're an amazing team, but I think the potential here at Andretti is great. And yeah, it's cool. Every time I speak to Dan, I just, have the best conversations about, what we're going to do and how this is going to all work out. So yeah, super excited.
So was that kind of the deciding factor? Because I imagine, look, this has been a topic. This has been a story kind of throughout this season. Everybody knew it was a contract year for you. It was well publicized that there hadn't been any movement on it. You kept telling the world you were waiting to hear.
Yeah.
So I imagine once people started kind of maybe thinking that your time at Penske was coming to a close, there's not a team in pit lane that wouldn't want Will Power to drive for them. So you would have had a lot of choice, a lot of option. What was kind of the biggest single factor for you that made you decide to go with Andretti over any of the competitors?
Yeah, you're right.
Including Penske, ultimately including Team Penske.
Yes, you're right. There was a lot of options. And Roger was good enough after Detroit to sit down and then say, look, I'm going to allow you to talk to other teams to see what's out there, because obviously they had, potentially a direction they wanted to go. Just depending on, I think it's kind of, enough. They were waiting to see if I was good enough, or waiting to see if the other guy was replacing me was good. No, I don't know. But yeah, it was just that I think it was their ability to be able to make big changes, the budget, there's just many reasons that went into it. It's never just straightforward and simple. A lot of smart people work at Andretti. You know, they are a very good team. They won 3 races this year. I think Honda's been very strong this year. You know, the first time I ever talked to Dan, I just thought that, you know, he's a very intelligent guy. He was very aware of what needed to change within his team, which is, you know, sometimes which is unusual, I'd say, for a guy in his position, who is not there day to day, but he really understood, hey, I know these are things that have got to change at our team, and he was very determined to make all that happen. There's just many things. It's just the right time. I knew on my gut, you know, when you get to my age, you just know, when it's time to make a change, and that's what was my feeling from the outset.
Again, it was pretty well publicized, Will, that you weren't getting kind of the feedback from Penske in terms of what was coming next. And up to a certain part of the season, you were saying openly, yeah, I want to stay, and if they offer me something, I'll take it. And then
yes,
that dragged on long enough that at some point there was a change in heart. And I guess I'm a little bit curious as to, you know, when that sort of moment was for you. Was there a light switch moment where you thought, you know what, I don't really like how this situation's gone? Did you feel, sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you feel like the way they handled that situation was a factor in you kind of making that decision that actually, you know what, I don't think this is the right place for me anymore?
A number of factors went into that, but it started way back in 24. You know, I know when I signed my last contract, I did go back to Tim Cindric and say, hey, I would like to do 3 years. And he said, look, you know, it was, you know, a roundabout conversation. Like you know, we'll talk at the end of 24. And if you're still performing, still doing well, we'll keep going. Well, I won 3 races in 24. I was the only driver that went into the last race with a shot to win the championship against Palou. So at that point, I was like, well, I'm sure they're going to speak to me in the offseason. It never happened. They never actually said a word. So I was pissed off going into May about it. I was pissed off going into the season about it. I was pissed off that you're not even going to say anything. That's true. It didn't, you know, and, you know, Roger wasn't aware when I said that to him, something along the lines of that was even the case. So, yeah, maybe I should have just called Roger. But yeah, that really, I just thought, what driver in the field wouldn't be signed after winning 3 races? The champion won 2. That's Palou. I won 3. Like, come on. But I mean, in his defense, Palou's not that good, so it's not really a good barometer. Yeah, that's
right?
exactly what I was about to say. No, but still, Penske is an amazing team, man. Like, it's true. I would have, you know, in May, I would have taken a 1-year deal straight, no problem. And then even as it dragged on and so on, I just thought, you know, I said to my engineer, I know if I turn up next year, I'm going to be an absolute championship contender. I know I will. And I can't actually, I want to say the time where I just said, nah, it's done, was after I won Portland. You know, it's done. Nah, I think it's time to change. I think that was when I just, in my mind, decided, I'm kind of sick of all the questions and so on, but I just thought, nah, I need to, it's time to change.
Was it because you won Portland and that still wasn't enough to kind of get that conversation going? Or not even that?
After Portland, that's when I was called. And they said, you know, a few days after Portland, you know, but I did get a text from Roger after that race. It didn't confirm anything or anything. He just kind of said, oh, this might help your situation for next year. But then eventually, I got a call, and it was Jonathan Gibbs, and he said, look, we'd like to fly you up to, send a plane down, fly up to Detroit, talk about your future. I said, oh, okay. And it was a bit like that. He goes, well, that's if you want to come back, and I said, look, I'm not coming back. I'm done. Just kind of went from there, basically. So yeah, I think it was around that. It was obviously at Portland or during Portland. In my mind, I'm like, it's time to do something different. I've had a great career and forever grateful for what Roger has done for me. And, not many drivers get to be put in that position, but I definitely took the ball and ran with it. I gave it everything I got. Was very loyal all the way through, never entertained another team. I had teams call me, offer me more money. I just didn't even entertain it. And the deals I did, it was hardly any negotiating. I almost asked them what they thought was fair. That was sort of relationship I had. So it was very good. It's always very, and that's how it should be. Both parties have got to be very happy with the situation. And, it was always that at Penske. Obviously, a lot of changes this year, which is, unfortunate how that all played out for those guys that got let go. They're great guys. And, man, big decision and move, but I'm sort of late enough in my career to, I wouldn't say take a risk, but if it all went bad, it wouldn't matter. I've still had a great time, but like I said, I'm still as determined as ever to compete at a high level and win races. It's just in me, and just absolutely love the sport. I don't even want to think about doing sports car or anything else. I just love IndyCar racing. I just can't think of another series that's as satisfying as racing IndyCar. I really can't. So that's why I've kept going this long.
So James has made a point earlier, because obviously, we've been speculating like everybody else about your career on this, but he made the point, like, if this had been the end, if you were ready to hang it up, there's not a single person who would look at that and say, oh, what might have been. Like, you have far exceeded most drivers' wildest dreams. You've been successful in every aspect of this sport. I mean, do you feel like there's still more to prove? And if so, what is left for you to prove?
I'll tell you what's left to prove is that you could be incredibly competitive in your 40s. You can still win races and championships, and your performance does not drop off. So that's been my sort of, I've always had drivers throughout my career in my mind that makes me really determined. And that's one of them. Like, you don't get slower. People just say that and put it in their own mind. And it's also the challenge of going to another team and being competitive in a different situation. Can you do that? It's all that stuff. So it's, that is true. Like, if I stop now, it's not like I've had a great career, but man, I think also when you get in your 40s, you realize your true purpose in life, like, is to enjoy what you do. There's times during my career where I'm like, I don't really want to do this. There's better things to do, but it's not true. You don't realize how lucky you are to get paid to drive race cars, even professional. Like, I still, like to race go-karts. Like, if you're a pro go-karter, it's the same feeling, man. When I turn up with the go-kart team, it's the exact same feeling as being at an IndyCar race. Like, still going through the same processes. It's just as competitive. And it's just like, if you were getting paid to race go-karts for your whole life, you're better than 99% of people doing a really incredibly fun and enjoyable activity and getting paid to do it. Sorry, I'm just seem to be getting like a million text messages nonstop. So I'm just trying to, so I wonder why.
No worries. Yeah.
That's just
Oriole
on
in your day.
Yeah. It's like I had to turn my phone upside down. Like, they stop calling people. Yes, I am doing something different. It's just like nonstop. And my wife's phone, like I'm moving the text out of the way.
So well, you're doing this change. You've been with one team for, it was 17 years with Penske?
17 years, yeah. Penske, yeah.
17 years with Penske, 17 years with the same engineer. You and Dave Faustino have been together that whole time. Penske's been with the same engine manufacturer that whole time. So you are doing about as dramatic a change and complete full house switch from what you've been experiencing. What is the thing that you are most excited about? Obviously the whole challenge is something that's driving you, but is there one specific element that kind of stands out that you're the most excited about?
One is feeling a Andretti car on a street course, and the other is feeling a Honda and feeling a Honda engine. I've competed against Honda for so long and just wondered and watched them, be incredibly successful, but so has Chevy. It's been quite, it ebbs and flows, like who has the better performance year in, year out. But I'm interested. I think that engine has a different characteristic and has always had that characteristic from the outset, which makes it, good on street courses, short tracks and so on. So yeah, I'm very interested in that, just to feel a different car. I mean, it would be very interesting to me,
Yeah, I mean, that's something that Rossi's talked about on this show. Obviously, he went from a Honda to a Chevy and talked a lot about that based on kind of what you've heard and, speaking to other drivers in the paddock. What are you expecting out of feeling a Honda engine for the first time?
I think it has a fatter power curve. I think that, I think those guys probably have more power down low. The Chevy strength has been its top end power over the time. So I think the engines are very even now. Very even. It's sort of hard to pick the difference on telemetry because, we get to see each other's telemetry. So it's going to be just sort of different. It's going to have just a different feel, and drivability and so on. I think that they are the differences now. I think overall power levels and performance is very close.
How excited are you about the fact that Andretti's team kit requirements are T-shirts and jeans and no longer polo shirts and slacks?
Man, that's going to be interesting. Are you
going to feel a little naked walking into a racetrack not wearing a collared shirt?
It will be really, I've thought about that too. I see Colton and Kyle, Mark is just rocking up.
It just looks so comfortable and casual and
yeah.
You can grow a beard now.
I could.
Are you going to grow your mountain man beard back?
No. I'm still, I think you go to work to be very professional. And, I think that reflects on the people you're around to see how serious you are. So, those things actually do matter. I've been in the sport long enough to know that the way you present yourself, the way you talk, the way you act really matters around the people that work on your cars. So, it is nice that I think all that will kind of stay pretty same for me.
So are you planning like a cathartic burning of all your pleated slacks, in the backyard now that the season's over, or is that maybe a little? But we just stick to like giving it all to Goodwill.
It's already happened, so. No.
Straight after Portland, he just kept one and burned the rest.
No, it's that will be interesting, rocking up jeans. I'll look at Joseph and Scott and just go, you just don't know how good it is on the other side, man. Sorry. No.
The freedom that I feel. My neck can actually get a burn on the back now. It's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, man. I didn't realize they could wear T-shirts. I don't see them in T-shirts. They still have like a team shirt.
Like
it is a T-shirt.
It's a team shirt, but it's a T-shirt cut.
Oh, it is a T-shirt. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. That's a change. Like the Penske has a small collar. It's very small. It almost went half to T-shirt. Mm-hmm. So, it won't be the big... But I'm going to wear a big V-neck first time, like just to get as much
Nice.
As much t-shirty look as possible.
Just make sure you remember you got to add a little extra sunscreen to the back of your neck now because you don't have as much protection back there. Yeah. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So, well, I kind of liked hearing you talk about how, and we're getting to the end. I'll let you go, and really appreciate the time and you guys being on here for this news. But I really enjoyed hearing you talk about how you could hear how fired up you are about proving to people that a guy in his 40s can still win races and championships. And you've proved that you can still win races. Like you say, last year you took the championship down to the last round. Realistically, how long do you think you can race? I mean, do you think that there is an age limit? I know it's the cliche answer is as soon as I'm not fast, I'll stop. But
that's right.
Based on how you feel, like how long do you think that can be?
I think if you keep the desire, you have to keep working at it, obviously be incredibly fit. I think I could go another, let's check in 3 years' time, but I would say 5 years, you could still be very competitive as long as you don't slacken off in any way. It's a constantly changing game and you got to keep updating. And yeah, it's always wondered, I just think the experience counts for a lot. Like you could do nothing in the off season, turn up and be pretty bloody good anyway, but you still it's just about, it's like everything in life, it's how much you put into it and it's what you get out of it. So yeah, I haven't slowed, I've got quicker. That's what I'll tell you. Yeah, I haven't got slower. Let's say I've got more rounded. I don't think I always had that top end speed, even if I lost a bit of the top end speed, but then had, just the experience I have, it's still a very good package, as a driver. So, yeah, I mean, you just know people's natural ability comes out very early. It sort of never changes the actual top end speed, like your qualifying speed. That's there from the beginning. That is the natural ability thing. You never see anyone that was under that end up coming up to a level.
Right.
You look at Colton just from the outset, the guy was incredibly fast. That was just natural ability. And then it just comes down to building on top of that. So that never seems to change, that top end speed. That's the one. That's probably the one. Like if you lost too much of that, that's when you're in trouble. But if you never quite had it, but you're a consistent driver, that's when you will drop off in your 40s. If you're never had a ton of speed, you probably do lose a little bit of top end, and then you can't make up for it with just being consistent. You just can't. So it was just, that was always there for me.
Statistically speaking, you've got more top end speed than anybody in the history of the sport. So that makes me think you're good till at least 50.
That's true. I could lose whatever you lose when you're 50 and still just sort of be good with experience.
10th and a half. You're still good, man. You're still good. It's like only 4 poles a year instead of 8. Well, look, man, it's a huge bit of news. I think the entire motorsports world is shocked and amazed and impressed and happy for you. We're really excited to see what you can do behind the wheel of an Andretti IndyCar. And I'm a believer, man. I'm in the camp that thinks you're still just as fast as you've been and still can fight for it. So we look forward to seeing what that looks like next year, bud.
No, man, I can't wait. I really can't wait. It's going to be a great challenge and journey and all the stuff that go with it. So, yeah, look forward to working with some really good people.
I'm just excited to keep showing you respect,
Thank you.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate you coming on. This has been Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. Off Track is part of the SiriusXM Sports Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please give a 5-star rating and leave a review. Subscribe today wherever you stream your podcasts. We are at Ask Off Track on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Hinchtown and at Alexander Rossi. If you want to follow Tim, though we have no idea why you would, he's at the Tim Durham on Twitter. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel for exclusive video content. Off Track is produced by Tim Durham, and by that we mean Tim.